Hello, I'm Daniel, and welcome to the Emunah Project. We here at the Emunah Project are continuing in our series of videos of inspiration, guidance, advice, education, and I want to introduce a subject that is particularly serious and particularly painful, the subject of intermarriage and assimilation. This has been going on far too often and increasingly so ever since the war. It's sometimes been called the silent Holocaust. Jews are disappearing. They're being lost to intermarriage and assimilation. It's very sad. And I am reminded of a story of Ber Weissmandl, the Rav. Ber Weissmandl. Two Jewish businessmen come to the Rav. They're business partners, and they're distraught. They're heartbroken. Their faces are white. Their tears are in their eyes. They tell the Rav that their sons were going to be marrying non-Jewish girls, and they were desperate. They says, we'll do whatever you want. We'll do whatever it takes. Please help us. We're desperate. We'll do anything. And the Rav could see that they were heartbroken. He gives them a second to collect themselves, and he says, I want to tell you a story. After World War I, the borders in Central and Eastern Europe changed drastically. You were in a village in one country, next thing you know, that village is in another country. One day you're in the Ukraine, the next day you're in Poland. One day you're in Romania, the next day you're in Hungary. And what would happen sometimes with some villages is that the village would be in one country, but the cemetery would now be across the border in another country. This posed a problem with the Jewish burial society, the Gerim, because if you can imagine these men taking a casket across a border with border checks and guards and the paperwork and the red tape, this would delay the burial, which was, of course, a big problem under Jewish law. A body has to be buried very quickly, very soon after the death. What happened in time was that a special dispensation was granted to members of the Chevra Kadisha to cross the border with a casket. It didn't take long before the non-Jewish, the Gentile smugglers, to see an opportunity that could be exploited. They figure, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get a coffin. We're going to stuff it full of contraband. We'll go across the border. We'll say, oh, we're a Jewish burial society. Next thing you know, we're millionaires. We're going to be very, very rich. And this is what they do. They go to the border, they have a coffin, and they say, we're members of the Jewish Burial Society. A sharp-eyed lieutenant was at the border that day, and he's been watching these guys. And he goes over to talk to them. He says, what's the deal? Jewish Burial Society, we're going across. We're going to bury a body, everything. We'll be back before you know it. The sharp-eyed lieutenant says, you know what? For a Jewish burial society, you guys don't look very sad, very somber. As a matter of fact, I was watching you guys, and you were joking and laughing the whole way. I don't think you're part of a Jewish burial society at all. Open up the casket. I want to see the body. Immediately, the smugglers freak out. Oh no, we can't. You can't open the coffin. It's a Jew thing. You can't do that. The lieutenant saw they weren't worried about a breach of Jewish law. These guys were terrified. And of course, the guards opened the casket, a coffin filled with contraband, very expensive contraband. Immediately, the smugglers start crying, begging, pleading. Oh, please, don't. It's not our fault. We're feeding starving families. It was the first time we did it, and we'll never do it again. We'll never do it again. We'll do whatever you want. And the lieutenant says, "Oh, I believe that you'll never do it again, but by the time you get out of prison, you'll be too old to do anything. You're crying now? You're crying now because you see what's in store for you. Had you cried when you were coming in, when you were supposed to be the burial society, you wouldn't be crying now, because nothing would have, you should have known. If you were crying then, you wouldn't be crying now. And Rav Weissmandl ends the story, and he says, you know, you guys aren't observant. You don't keep the Sabbath. You don't keep kosher. You haven't given these boys a Jewish education. And now that your boys are about to walk down the aisle in some church somewhere, now you come to me? Now you want me to do something? Now you're concerned and you'll do anything? Had you shown the same concern when those boys were young? Had you come to me then with tears in your eyes, saying, we'll do anything, we'll do what you want? I would have helped. You wouldn't be crying now. You're crying now because the casket's open and you see what your future holds for you and for your sons and for your grandchildren who will not be Jews. It's too late. You should have come to me then. You should have cried then. Your tears are no good now. This is a very sad story with a very sad ending. And it highlights the seriousness of the situation and why it's called the silent Holocaust. You're not seeing people loaded into cattle cars and shipped off to gas chambers. You're not seeing peasants taken from villages and mowed down with rifles. It's silent. The intermarriage rate is astonishingly high, depending on which part of the country you are. It's disturbing, and it's a subject that is worth our attention. I'm going to be doing a few more videos along these lines, along this subject. Please come back, please watch, please learn. And until that, next time, on behalf of the Emunah Project, I'm Daniel, and thank you too much.